Hello and welcome to this practice. So this is going to be a kind of a short yin based practice. I have got two little blankets with me and two blocks. Now the blocks I'm using today are actually foam blocks rather than the cork blocks, just because I think they're a little bit softer and nicer for more of a yin practice, but obviously using what you've got. This practice can just be done with the blocks if that's all you've got. The blankets are kind of extra if you just want a little bit more support and comfort and you need that and you have them available. So we are going to start off in a reclined position, and the first thing we'll be doing is actually using one block. So you can have it I'd probably put it on the lowest setting here, and then this edge of the block, which is can be lying on the mat, that wants to kind of connect with the base of your skull, or that occipital ridge. So it's the kind of, you can sort of feel if you bring your hands into the back of your skull where your neck meets the skull, your head, and you can kind of walk your fingers along that ridge line. That's the part of the skull, the head, that we want on the edge of the block. And then it's like a little rolling that will do a massage to kind of release and unwind, and using this to really drop more into that parasympathetic state of the nervous system, to kind of come more into that yin state of being, let's say. So, as you're ready, come on down, adjust your block as you need, and then here, it might be that you wanted to have blankets kind of underneath you or lying on top, or anything else that just makes you feel a little bit more supported and comfortable. I'm going to come into effortless rest, which is just having the feet out wide and the knees knocking in, arms down beside me. And then you might start off just in stillness with the head through center, and bringing your attention to your body. Noticing how your body starts to settle into the floor, the different points of contact, and in these initial moments, especially when we're coming into an intentionally slower practice, it's noticing, I say, the level of resistance, the level of bracing or pushing back. And so using your breath as the bridge to kind of soften you into the floor and allow the body, the mind, the opportunity to start to slow down, to wind down. So just taking your time, and it might be that we pay more attention to extending that exhale breath. So taking your regular full inhale, and then a slow gradual exhale out. Once you feel yourself kind of arriving here, sinking in, the exhale extending, then gently start to add movement here with your head. You start to roll the head to one side and then all the way to the other. Now, being relatively careful. So for some people, this is a really relaxing thing to do. Yeah, that unwinding around the neck, it feels great. But for others, and kind of depending on the story of your neck and your head and what's going on, it can cause kind of a little bit of discomfort, pain, or you can get like a light headache or even feel nauseous. If that's happening, one, you can sort of brace slightly so you're not sinking as much of the weight into the block. Other thing to do is actually grab a blanket or a little towel, place it over the block, and we just make it a softer surface. So for me, I actually find that much more supportive because my body's able to soften more into it, and that there's just some sensitivities around the neck. And that's a nice way of doing it. So it's really personal preference and just making sure you choose what feels best for you. And as much as you can, focusing on keeping your exhale breath that little longer, especially in the beginning. So you're just sort of paying attention, keep bringing yourself back. So you're using the breath again. I like to think of it as the bridge, right, between what's been happening externally and the way you're able to drop internally. And the breath kind of works with those more subtle energies of the body to balance out, to become more attuned to what's actually taking place. Just be here for a few more rounds. And then slowly making your way back to center. And then just a slight lift up, taking the block or the props out from underneath your head. As I mentioned, if you like a little bit more support and you kind of need to have some blankets or something underneath your head, feel free to adjust those here. If you don't mind or you don't have them, don't worry about it. Okay. As you're ready, drawing one knee followed by the other in towards your chest, and we'll rock side to side. As you massage into the lower back, you might also click your toes or spread your ankles, holding onto each knee, and just take those circles into your hip as well, your hips. And then easing your feet back down. Take a moment. With your feet on the floor, let's just lift the hips up, shuffle them over toward the left side of your mat, and then start to extend your legs towards the right corner of your mat. So your feet just might come alongside each other, or if there's space, you're going to take that left ankle and cross it over your right ankle. But really make sure that this left hip is able to sink towards the floor. If you're rolling onto the side, your feet are too far across, right? So it's our banana shape, this banana asana. And then I'm going to slide my head and my blankets, because I'm using them, over towards the right as well. Your arms can just stay down beside you, or we bring them up and overhead, maybe catching opposite forearms or wherever you can reach. So there is that sense of passive stretch, but when coming more into a yin practice, which really is, there is a level of passive stretching involved. That means we never want to go to 100% of the sensation of kind of where the body can go, because it's too easy to sort of move out of the stability and the structure. So it's more like a 70 to 80% of that range. And then the kind of art of it is, can you bring your attention, can you become really present, use your breath to soften the body, and rather than thinking I want to kind of stretch and lengthen everything out, it's this idea of creating space and approaching it with a sense of curiosity to what's happening on those more subtle layers of the body. And think about the kind of the subtle energy systems of the body. And using your breath to notice what happens. How does the body respond? Is there a sense of leaning in and softening, or is there more of a sense of bracing and pulling away? Nothing is wrong or good or bad. It's paying attention and then adapting to what you need. Sometimes it's taking a little bit less and you're like, oh, then I can soften the body more. And to think here as well, because we're kind of going to this passive stretch in the side body, so a lateral bend, can you bring your attention to your sacrum, so that bone in the center of the pelvis, like right in the center of your lower back, just above the butt crack? And can you imagine that you could soften around your sacrum here? And then just following the rhythm of your breath. Just take about another 3 to 5 more rounds of your breath here. Beautiful. And then slowly, and after your next breath, you might just release the arms, even taking a little stretch out long. So you float them down beside you, unhook the legs, gently bringing them back through center. And take everything through center in just a moment to extend the legs, the arms. This place of rebound and pause. And really offer the opportunity to just observe the difference between your right and left side. Okay. And we'll set up the opposite side. So again, sliding one leg up at a time. So kind of let the foot slide on the floor, coming back up, and then gently maneuvering your hips, your buttocks towards the right side this time as your legs slide back out. So ankles going toward the left. Maybe that right ankle crosses over. And then you can kind of shuffle your head and shoulders toward the left as well. Maybe taking those arms overhead. And then finding this, it's like a crescent moon or a banana-like shape from a bird's eye view. But so we're getting that kind of passive lengthening into the side body and making sure that your right buttock is coming towards the floor. So we're not rolling to the side. The more that this right hip sinks down, right, the more you feel that stretch through the side. So the sides of the ribs as well. And there's so much in yoga where we're looking to create space through the side body and the thoracic spine. Obviously to create kind of space for the diaphragm to expand and a spaciousness for all the organs, right? We're kind of housing all the important parts of the body. And to get that sense of space, it's not stretching, it's a spaciousness, an opening, and allowing the body to be able to move freely. And that maybe you focus on extending your exhale a little more as we spend the next few minutes here. Just take another 3 to 5 breaths where you are. And take one final breath here. Really be intentional and mindful as you start to shift out of this position. Just easing the arms down. Take that little kind of full body stretch of the arms. Oops, as you come over. Ooh. And then unwinding the legs. As you bring yourself through center, just extending everything out. Let that kind of rebound happen through center where the body recalibrates in the middle. Take a full breath in. And a sigh releasing out. And then one at a time, again, that kind of sliding your foot along the floor to then plant the foot, lift the knee, sliding up, nice and slow. Always intentional in the transitions in a slower practice, that you're not kind of jerking out of things and shifting the state of the nervous system, but keeping that relatively calm, kind of coherent, smooth, sloth-like movements. And then just taking your time, we'll roll onto one side. Momentary pause again, and the transition to come up. And then easing your way back up. And all the way over. So let's come onto hands and knees. Now, if you are using your blankets and things, you can bring them underneath your knees because we're going to set up in a child's pose. But we'll set up using the block or blocks for underneath your head. Also, if you do have a bolster and you prefer to have a bolster, you can kind of bring that between the legs and then come down and be supported. If you're just using your blocks, I want you to be careful about how wide you actually take the knees here. So a lot of people, you set up in a child's pose really wide, but when we're here in more of a passive variation, that tends to put quite a lot of pressure through the back and into the hip joints when we're sinking in and not engaging. So for this, I would highly recommend keeping your knees relatively close. There can be a little gap, but you should make sure that the kind of side ribs of your body are supported by your legs and it's not all hanging in space. That would be my recommendation, but obviously do what feels best for you. Another thing, if you do use the blankets and you know that when you're here, sometimes if you're actually quite flexible and it gets a little bit sticky in your hips, folding a blanket between your thighs and your hips can be helpful. And then we're going to come down from here. Now, you can adjust how you want to use your blocks. It might be 1, it might be 2, and just letting your forehead rest. It's me, I want to also just adjust and have a blanket because I like it to be a little bit softer. And adjusting as you need. And then we'll be here. So you can have your arms out in front, you might bring them behind, you might even tuck them in or take them back. Be curious to where you feel more comfortable. And just like what I'm doing, sometimes you come in and you're like, oh, that's not quite the right position and you need to modify. So modify away. And as you find the shape here, because we're now folded in half, so you're in a forward fold, can you think about sending your breath, directing your breath more into the sides of your ribs here and the back of your ribs, right around the shoulder blades. So we're kind of training the diaphragm to expand into the back a little bit more and create that extra space. We're not trying to push into the front body. And then we'll take another 3 to 5 breaths here. After your next cycle of breath, slowly easing your way back up. Shuffling those props out the way. Again, just take your blocks more to the top of your mat now. Taking what you need to kind of come out from here. And then moving into a tabletop. So just if you'd like to, add a little movement here. So as we kind of rebound out of this shape, coming into movement, that might just look like a cat-cow or anything else that kind of makes sense to your body here to move into. You're taking the hips side to side. And kind of rolling through your head and your neck. Okay. And then we're going to set up for a lizard lunge. We're not going to be here too long on each side, but kind of working into those hips. So to set up, you can be from your tabletop position or just lifting up. Both hands to the left and then right foot comes forward. And then kind of slide forward. Now it's so dependent on your hips what this will look like. It's probably, look, everyone looks a little bit different. And then the blocks can be here underneath your hands. So for me, quite a lot of space in this direction. Yours might look a whole lot different and it's all good. You can also use extra blocks, like if you've got 4 blocks, you can really stack them up nice and high. Sometimes if the blocks are, on their highest setting, they're a little bit wobbly when you want to lean your weight into them. So just setting up as you can. And then maybe coming down onto your elbows here. But I will say this is an intense shape to be in. Yep. As you're probably aware, we're not going to be here as long, but just finding the breath. And that might mean, can't say this enough, is that we pull back, right? You don't want to be at that 100%. Pull it back to where you can sit and where you can actually breathe and hold kind of longer than just 20 seconds. It's going to be under 2 minutes that we're here each side, but finding a place you can be. And then slowing and extending your exhale breath. So just take 3 to 5 more breaths right here. After your next breath, lifting back up. You might want to add some movement here. I quite like to pull back into that straight-legged Hanumanasana position, but up to you. Easing back, maybe it's a pause, maybe it's a little bit of movement. And then sliding that right foot back or that right knee back. And let's take it to the other side. So it'll be your left foot forward. Unless you went the other way, adjusting the blocks the way you're using the props and then sinking into your level of this lunge. So we come forward. Again, like I've mentioned, when we can easily sit into kind of more of a passive stretch, you've got to make sure it's not going into a place of vulnerability, that you still feel strong, you're able to sit here and keep a a coherence, a flow with your breath. So it might be that you're lifting up a little bit higher or pulling back slightly and coming in. But again, especially in this one, I think more like 70%, not your full depth of range. Just take another 3 to 5 breaths right here. After your next breath, starting to lift back up. Again, you might just kind of pull back for a moment to pause there. You can come out of it right away, or you might invite a little bit of movement, just easing in and out as we come out from that side. And when you're ready, sliding that left leg back, coming out from here. Okay, let's give a little roll of those shoulders. And we're going to roll through the head and neck. We'll make our way back down onto your back for a supported bridge here. So again, depending on what you've got, if you've got your block or blocks, you're just going to have those as they are to stack underneath the sacrum. If you like it just a little bit softer, then covering the blocks with a blanket is kind of gives you more the feel of the bolster. So you can choose the height, whether you want 1 or 2. I'm just going to use 1, but up to you. Obviously 2 is going to give you a little bit more height. Sweeping the feet out the way. Come on down. And again, if you want that support for the head, I am going to use a blanket under my head, but I'm only using 1 block for height under the sacrum. If you're going any higher, then I wouldn't have something underneath the head. It just starts to compress the neck a little bit. So assessing what that feels like for you. Grab hold of those props. Once you're down in constructive rest, we're going to want to sit up from here, lifting your hips just enough to bring in the props underneath. And you want those going onto your sacrum here. Okay, so if it's too high, like onto your back and your spine, it can feel like it's pinching into your back. It's not very comfortable. Take the support down towards your buttocks a little more. And then we'll be here. Now, for those who have other variations, sometimes it's nice to extend the legs out long. Again, really mindful of your lower back here if you're taking both at the same time. That can put a lot of just pressure into the back. So if it feels fine for you, all good, but just really be honest with how it feels. The other way of doing it, if you want to extend your legs, is just to extend 1 leg at a time. Keeps a little bit of extra stability when you've got 1 leg bent. And coming back into your breath. And we'll be here for about 2 full minutes. And just where you are, we'll take another 3 to 5 breaths. And then after your next round of breath, once you're ready to come up from here, just take your time to lift the hips. Slide the support from underneath you. Looking out to the side, let your back come back down to the floor. That moment to pause. Notice how your back then rests on the mat. As and when you'd like, one knee at a time and towards your chest. Little rock side to side like we started, circling out the hips. And then your option to kind of finish the practice today would be to come into your regular Shavasana right away, or grabbing hold of your blocks. You're going to come into a Baddha Konasana or Supta Baddha Konasana, so the blocks just come in underneath your hips. You can choose the height. Now, I have relatively open hips and my knees will come all the way down, but it's in the full range, and so I don't necessarily want that. I want to be able to go to kind of soften and allow my legs to be heavy, so I always like to have the blocks underneath, even though they can go further to stop the full range. So up to you if you're doing that, but we'll either take Shavasana from Baddha Konasana here or just the legs extended out long. Use those blocks to support. Roll your shoulders back and down, palms facing up, either a soft gaze or closing your eyes and just letting this kind of slow and mindful practice settle. Celebrating the time that you've taken today to practice and be in this way for your Shavasana. And then if you have some extra time, I highly recommend staying here longer. If you're with me, gently starting to deepen your breath, wriggle into your fingers and your toes. And maybe that you stretch out. And today, let's just close from here. Feel free to bring one hand to the belly, one to your chest. Take a full breath in. A sigh releasing out. Thank you for joining me and practicing in this way, and have a beautiful rest of your day.